for grade 10 Life Science with Cheryl. Hi, Cheryl. Well, thank you, Kate. That's good. Today for Life Science, we're doing biodiversity and classification. This week, we're going to biodiversity. We're going to look at how the variety of living things on Earth and how we give each and every one of them these very special specific properties. Oh, that sounds really exciting, Cheryl. Please go and prepare your board. So, guys, as you know, you can get hold of us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/LearnExtra, as well as our Twitter handle @LearnExtra. So today, guys, please join us for some fun-filled lessons here on mindset. And remember that we're always here for you guys. So get on the page, chat to us, and let us know where your difficulties are or where you find most fun. And also, maybe just tell us how your day went, because it is such a lovely, stunning day. So please call your friends. You as well. Come join us, guys. Over to you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Katlego. Welcome, grade 10s. I think most of you would have had a nice and relaxing holiday last week. So this week you should be up and ready and filled with vigor to take on that last part of the year. We're now into the final stretch. So you should be revising, getting all your revision all in place, because remember, at the end of the year, your exam is going to count 75%, which for lots of you, I know you're not used to it in grade 8 and 9. Today we're going to look at biodiversity and classification. All right, and what I'm talking about, biodiversity is about variety. Okay, variety. I want you to start thinking already things about chocolates that you like. As you can see, I like chocolates, and different kinds of animals and different kinds of plants and different kinds of insects. That is what we're going to talk about. And as you know, some of you, all right, all of those have a very specific name, a biological name, a scientific name that we're going to look at, and we're going to show you, all right, how we're going to organize that so you are much more clearer. Okay, we're going to start off with the first slide, and I've used a lot of pictures here because that's exactly what it's about. When I talk about biodiversity, it is variety. It is the wide range of living organisms that we talk about in the biosphere. Remember when we looked at ecology, we said biosphere was the whole in which all living organisms were found. And as you can see, I've put on a whole lot of variety of pictures here. I could have chosen anyone. If I just asked you to think about a flower, I can guarantee that all of you are going to think a couple can pop into your mind. If I have to think about an animal, oh, there's so much that can pop out, and that is what we're going to talk about, biodiversity. And a very little simple quote that I always say, biodiversity is good. It's good for the environment. Choice is always so important. I always say to my grade 10 classes, imagine if you had a piece of bread. All right, and unfortunately, sometimes in our country, it's the case. But if you had a piece of bread for lunch, for breakfast, and for supper, and that was all, you weren't allowed anything on it. All right. Some of you are already saying, "Oh, boring." But let's look at the greater concept. If I have a piece of bread only, let's go back to our biochemistry. What's going to happen? I'm not going to get all my nutrients. I'm not going to get all my vitamins. I'm not getting all my food groups. So I am unwell, I am unhealthy. It's the same as they're going to be in the environment. The lack of animals, the lack of plants, the lack of biodiversity, right, means we're going to have a really, really sick environment, sick in ecosystems. We're going to put such pressure on the animals that are going to then try and were able to survive. If you have a look, I think most of you will recognize a dog. All right, there we go. Here's plants, it's a fern. All right, the most yummy fungus of all, the mushroom. This is an amoeba, right? It's a single-celled organism, and we're going to talk about it lately. So some of these things you would have recognized, some you don't. But as I said, I could have put a variety of pictures on here, all right? And there's just so much, and that's the awesome thing. There's just so much variety that you can choose from. Okay, now when we look at variety, please understand you get different kinds of variety. The first one is species, all right, diversity. Diversity, all right, means differences. Again, the pictures that I could have chosen, what I'm looking at here is just a few, variety of different species. Here's bears, all right? Here's tigers, here's apes. Here over here is the insect. So we're looking at cats, we're looking at primates. Here we're looking at reptiles. Here we're looking at birds. There again, the bear, right? So we're looking at all these different varieties of animals that you can get. Now, if I go to the next one, okay, sorry, let me go back again. All right, have a look here. Now, what I'm going to show you are 3 different pictures of dogs. All right, the first one, the Chihuahua, have no cooking clue what its point is, but people seem to like it. All right, then there's a Beagle, all right, and then there's Rottweilers. Now, what I'm showing you, all right, is not different species. I'm showing you dogs. And in that species of dog, all right, there is great amount of variety, right? Because we interbreed dogs, we come up with new breeds, right? Because dogs, same species, they can usually breed, okay, together. So what you're going to see is we're going to get all these different kinds of dogs. Some are mongrels, some are pure breeds, but we see variety. Now we go on to the last one, okay, and this is the one that we've been doing recently. That is ecosystem variety. Now, I just put on here the biomes because that's what we have currently just been doing when we looked at the biomes of South Africa. And what were they? They were large areas that showed a specific variety of plants, a specific variety of wildlife, etc. And it was climate that determined it, but what does it do? It brings about biodiversity. And that leads me to South Africa. We are so lucky to live in a country that is the third in the world for biodiversity when it comes to their plants and animals. We are so lucky to have a country that is so filled with all this variety. Now, our climate, it's because, we've got all these nice currents, the warm, all right, Benguela, the colder Gullis, we've got the Highveld, we've got the coastal areas, we've got such a diversity, all right, of climates, etc., that we are able to have these wonderful, all right, biodiversity, all right, a variety of plants and animals. Okay, so as I said to you, South Africa, all right, we are very lucky when it comes to biodiversity. Now, when there's just a few terms that you need to think of when we're looking at biodiversity. First of all, we want to recognize plants that are indigenous. That means they are from here. They weren't brought over, all right, for some reason. Their place, all right, of development, their place of where it was made, if I could use a short term, is right here in the region in which you are in. So that is an indigenous plant. When we talk about something that was brought in, right, for example, when we come to fish, the trout and the bass, they didn't originate in South Africa, all those happy fishermen. They didn't originate here, all right? So we call them alien or exotic, like the wattle tree, all right? That is really, in our country, it's a big pest in the tree, all right, industry, because it absorbs so much water and leaves the others without. So if I remember what I said to you, okay? So we've got indigenous and we've got the alien or exotic. The next term you need to know is endemic. Endemic means that it's found nowhere else in the world, only in that particular area or that particular region. All right, and again, South Africa is blessed with what we call 3 hotspots. That means areas that show a great amount of biodiversity. The first one we've touched on when we looked at the fynbos and when we looked at our biomes, and that they call the Cape Floral, all right, region. And that's where, remember, when you go look at your biomes, that was where the proteas, the fynbos, even going into our Succulent Karoo, what did we see? Our beautiful Namaqualand daisies. Huge, big tourist attractions for us. But this biodiversity not only brings in tourists, but as you can see, what a beautiful country we live in. Okay, so the first one is the Cape Floral region. The next one, okay, is our Succulent Karoo. Right, again, Here's that plant. It's the stone plant. It looks like a right. It looks like a stone, so that animals don't eat it. Our beautiful feihies, where if those of you, some of you, I think in the winter you planted them in your garden. They looked absolutely beautiful. I went to the Laurie Park Zoo the other day, and I think they had the most awesome garden there with all these beautiful flowers. It was wonderful. And these funny little plants over here, all right, is called a Hoffmans. Now when we talk about that later, we're going to see, how we call things can actually cause a little bit of problem. So that's why we need special names. These, and the last one that we're going to look at, all right, it's a very long name, the Maputo Ponderland Albany hotspot. And that is basically, all right, I'm going to show you a map now, is on the coast, all right, on our southern coast, all right? So you'll see here, it's our coastal areas. Remember I spoke about all these small little forest areas, not big enough to have our huge big forests, but small little temperate regions. Plants like the Strelitzia, all right, are all very common, all right, and show great biodiversity. If I show you the map over here, you will see a bit more clearly. Here is the Maputo Ponderland hotspot. Over here, there we're going to find the Cape Fynbos or the Cape Floral area, and over there is going to be your Succulent Karoo. So when it comes to being a South African, you are so privileged, all right, to have this great biodiversity, this great variety of plants and animals. The only problem is especially when it comes to these areas, lots of the plants there, all right, are becoming extinct. They are in the endangered list, and we need to look after them, all right, rather than destroy them. Okay, now we get to the interesting part. Remember when I said to you just now, if I go back over here to this photo, let me go back to this one. I said over here, this is a Hoffmans. All right, now, as you would have noticed, I used an Afrikaans term. Now, that, right, could be problematic, as I said, Afrikaans, and that obviously not going to be the language of the rest of the people in the world. So what we need to do now is all this great biodiversity, all right, what we have to do is we now have to find a way in which we can give it a name, a scientific name. In other words, all this great biodiversity, what we have to do is take it, and you know what scientists are like, they want to box it. All right? We need to take all the characteristics, all the things that look the same, that work the same, and we want to put them into different boxes. All right? We want to classify them, which leads us on to, all right, as I said, our next section. Okay, we classify, we organize, we sort. You guys do this in your home without even trying to be scientific. I can guarantee you, if you go to the kitchen, you have a drawer for all your cutlery. Okay? So if I open it up, I'm going to see knives and forks and spoons or whatever. And I'm sure some of you as well have even got those little dividers where you've put the spoons in one and you've put the knives in the other and the forks, all right, in the one. That's exactly what we do in biology, all right? The cutlery, its whole purpose was to eat. We use it as eating utensils. So we put all of our eating utensils together, but then we separate the different ones for what we need. That's exactly what we are going to do now when we do classification. We're going to sort out, we're going to look at the similarities, compare, and we're going to put it into boxes because it's all going to have certain criteria. Then, very important, we are going to name it. We need to give it a scientific name so that it is used, it's a common name amongst everybody. We might have a common name that we call it. We might call it the yellow lily bush, and overseas they might call it the yellow Bessie, whatever. So we need to have standardization. So you'll see when we're now going to classify and we are going to name, taxonomy, taxa, put into, all right, the different kingdoms. Okay, now you'll see this picture over here, all right. When we look at classification, you're going to notice, all depends on what kind you do, that there is a little bit of disagreement, all right, about some of where it belongs and whatnot, but we'll get back to that just now. Most of you, when we start to classify things, all right, this Swedish botanist, Carolius Linnaeus, all right, he was the one who started to put things, trying to sort things out and put them into the little boxes. As you can see, all right, from his beginning, his was very simple. He used plants and he used animals. And if I give you the date, 1753, roundabout, then you start to need to make the connection that these were the things that he could see. All right, as time has gone on, what have we done? Wow, the microscope. The greater the technological development, the easier now it is for us to see things that are small, microscopic, which obviously in his days he wasn't able to see. So the development of finding new living things, all right, also plays around in how we're going to classify things and how we put them into perspective. But for him, he started off, all right, plants and animals, and he had the different criteria. And as I said, very simple, but what he could see. But what he did, which is very important, is that he put things into an order. All right. I think they use it's from the largest to the smallest. So what are we going to look? It's categorizing. So his classification system. I'm just going to do the basic one, and then I'll speak about the domains. He looked at the biggest first, the kingdom, and what it was is certain criteria in that kingdom. Okay, we're going to look at the kingdoms just now. Then, so he had like a tick box. These are the characteristics, all those organisms, they belong to that kingdom. And it was a very broad, so there was lots of animals. As we get to each stage, the phylum, to a class, order, family, genus, and species, what are we doing? We're making the criteria more and more specific. So at the end, only one thing can fit into the species mold. Okay, so when we're looking at what you'll see over here, I put up a bit of a rhyme for you. I'm going to be honest with you. I also sometimes get confused. And when I'm marking, I always remember King Philip crossed over. See, I don't like green soup because that reminds me of peas. Don't like it at all, right? But love jewelry. So I always remember King Philip crossed over for gold and silver. See, King Philip crossed over for gold and silver. It's a nice little rhyme for you to be able to remember, so you can picture it in your mind so that you can put it in the order from my largest category, all right through to my smallest. As I said, large, lots of things, because the criteria is very broad, all right? Then at each one, what do? I make the criteria that I need smaller and smaller so that the animals that fit in there, all right, become more specific. So remember this. Okay, now let me go on to domain quickly. In the last couple of years, right, since about 1970, what they have noticed is that they used to have kingdoms, and now they actually put things into 3 domains. When we get to our kingdom Monera, the bacteria, they put all bacteria together in one kingdom. And as I said, as technology has improved, so they've noticed that there's a lot of differences. So what they've done is they have taken all of the living things and divided them into 3 domains. So it actually now becomes domain, kingdom, phylum, class. The 3 domains, all right, is going to be your archaea. That's the first one. That is going to be the bacteria that we call the ancient bacteria, all right? The next one is your bacterial kingdom. Those are prokaryotes. We'll get to that just now. And the last one, the last kingdom, is eukaryotes. Prokaryotes should ring a bell when you did the cell. They are cells that do not have a nuclear membrane, all right? Whereas a eukaryotic cell has a nuclear membrane in which the chromatin network and the nucleolus, etc., are going to be placed. So there is a difference there. Right, now he's also responsible for naming things. He all right, was responsible for the binomial, all right, system of naming. Binomial means two. Binomial. Each thing, now remember what I said to you, this is important. Organisms, living organisms, need a scientific name. Because what I call something, somebody else might have a different name for it. So now you think that they're two different things, all right, but they're not. So for example, I live in Pretoria, and we are characteristics of the jacaranda tree. Now the jacaranda tree is not an indigenous tree to, all right, South Africa. It's actually from South America. So now we call it a jacaranda because of the Pretoria area, etc. I can assure you, going across to South America, they are not going to call it that. All right? So it's totally different organism. It's got the same organism, should I say, totally different names. So everybody thinks that it's different, but it's not. So if we look at its common, all right, scientific name, then there's no excuse, all right, for any kind of confusion. Those of you who go to the botanical gardens or go to these parks, very often trees have got little plates on them, and you will see they're named. Their common name, all right, is written, and then underneath there, all right, their scientific name. Same as if you go to zoos and you look at the animals. What are they going to have? They're going to give you, it's called, for example, a tiger, all right, then it might be their Panthera tigris. All right, so we have the one name and then the scientific name. So now we have two names, all right? You need two names. One is going to be, all right, its common name, all right? Panthera, for example, means the cats. Felis Panthera for the wild cats, Felis for the domestic cats. So when we label something, all right, we are going to give it two names. Now, yes, I know it is all those really big names, but you don't have to know them, all right? You'll probably be given them, but they are in Latin. Remember, around about the time in which all of the classification, all right, was occurring, what did you find? The language at that time of science was the Latin names. Okay, so each organism has got two names. Now, what you will find over here, all right, and there's just a little bit of a mistake over here. When you write the names, right, there are rules. First of all, okay, the genus name must always be in a capital. Let me use the pen, and I'll show you. All right, okay. So here, it should actually be, all right, if you write in cursive, all right, Panthera leo. All right, have a look. The genus name is in capital letters, and the species name is in small letters. All right, now, if you were to write it in print form, okay, you have to do something. Whenever you write a species name, you must two things. One, you can write cursive, as I have just done now, or if you type it, it must be in italics. But for you guys, I think some of you, I know some of my kids said they even forgot about what cursive looks like. What you do is you take a pen and you highlight it. Not highlight, underline. Okay, so when I underline it, that is telling me that it's the species name. So the genus, right, is in a capital letter, and the species is always in a small letter. It's written in italics for those of you that's cursive writing. If you do not write it in italics, please, you must underline the word. Then you know that it is, all right? Then you know that it is a name. Okay? Taxa, taxonomy, it's the naming of the organisms. All right, so have you got that? So what we do is we're going to classify them according to their similarities. We're going to look at the kingdoms now, and then we are going to look, all right, at so all those animals we then give a specific name to. You're going to call it whatever you want, but you're not in it for the science, all right? So the whole scientific part of the biology, it will have one common name.
Can we go for a quick break, Cheryl?
I think so, yes.
Sure. So, guys, let's go for a break. In this break, just refresh, maybe get a glass of water because it has been such a warm, stunning day. And we will see you right after this break. Welcome back, Mindsetters. If you have just joined us, we are doing biodiversity and classification for grade 10s. But you grade 10s have been so quiet up to now. I'm hoping because we've had a little bit of a break, you guys are more excited and more energetic, and you can jump onto the page and chat to me. Come on, guys, I'm looking here at some posts, and some of you are really enjoying this. So in case you're not on the page, jump on the page and you will see how nice it is to actually get to chat to other Mindsetters and best of all, get to chat to me. So jump on the page, guys. I'll be waiting for you. Over to you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Katlego. Okay, we were talking about classification. In other words, giving things a scientific name. All right, remember what I said. We all have got different ways of different names for things. So for example, I surround in my class, like in the black community, they talk about a maroch. All right, I think they call it a maroch, right? And I said to them, now the lots of the white kids, and they were like, what on earth is that? And then somebody said, no, it's wild spinach. Okay, then all of a sudden everybody says, oh yeah, no, they know what it was. Now we're talking about two South Africans here, two that live in the same community, and we have different names for a particular kind of the spinach. That is what I'm talking about, all right? We're always going to use those common names to us. I'm not going to go and say, oh, look, there is a Felis domesticus, which is your household cat. You're going to say that's a cat. Remember, I'm talking about science, all right? The classification of it, you guys aren't going to do it, but you need to know, where do these funny names come from, all right? They come from those intelligent science people, right, who insist that everything needs to be in a box. Now, what I did over here, I've actually put you guys, all right, humans. I've shown how we are going to, all right, how we put you into the boxes. If you have a look over here, right, we're going to start off, as I said, I haven't put domain in. The domain that we would be in, right, is eukaryote, because human cells, all right, and all cells in the animal kingdom, shall I say, have got a nucleus, all right, a specific nuclear membrane with the nucleus. So in the kingdom, all right, we fall in the animal kingdom. We are not plants. We cannot photosynthesize. We don't have roots. We don't have stems. We are not little single-cell organisms. Okay, so we're going to go through the kingdoms just now, all right? So the animal, we are in the animal kingdom. We need to eat our food. We can't photosynthesize. We are able to move, etc. So that puts us in a large, very large bracket. Now, as I said to you, each box, we make our criteria smaller. The next one, my phylum, my criteria chordata. What does that mean? It means my invertebrates or my vertebrates. My backbone without a backbone. So now, if I say chordata, I am taking everything that doesn't have, all right, a backbone, and I'm throwing it out. That means all the insects, all right, all of those, your mollusks, etc., all of that, out they go, all right? They do not have, so all of a sudden, I'm chucking out, all right, certain from the animal kingdom, because what did I say? I need to make it more particular. Okay, so now I've refined it. So now what I found, I've got less organisms. The chordata, those are your, all right, your fish, your frogs, your reptiles, your birds, and your mammals. Okay, all of those are vertebrates. They have a backbone. Now I make, all right, now I make the criteria even smaller. The next one is my class. So now, what are the criteria for a mammal, all right? You need to be warm-blooded, usually have hair on your body, all right? You have ossicles in your ears. What else do you have? You have the woman feed by mammary glands, usually a placenta in which, all right, something is carried, a few exceptions. But you see what we do is, all of a sudden, we make the criteria, right, more specific. Out go my fish, out go my frogs, out go my reptiles, out go my birds, right? Because they do not have those particular characteristics. Now I refine once again. Here's my order, primate. We're not saying you're a monkey, all right, or a baboon or gorilla. We're saying that all of those animals have got certain things, all right, certain characteristics. they've got 5 digits. You've got 5 digits, right? Their arms, shoulders, they have shoulder joints that can move, right? They have a hip joint. They have got stereoscopic vision. They can see in front of them, the eyes in front, right front of their head. So those are things that we have in common. So we are going to be in the same group. Now we make the criteria even smaller. The family is the hominoid. A hominoid means to walk erect, all right? The word that you probably were going to hear later on is going to be bipedalism, walking on 2 legs, not, all right, you swinging from the trees or, running on all 4s, a quadruped, 2 legs. Those are going to be your hominids. Okay, then we go into an even more the genus, the homos, all right? You will see when we learn later about the fossils, there were a variety, all right, of groups, the Homo erectus, the Homo neanderthalis, and all of those had a certain characteristic, the size of their brain, all right, how they walked, how they used tools, etc. Okay, then we take it to the very, very last, where all our characteristics, the sapiens, that us, the humans, all right, all the characteristics that nobody else can fit into but us. Right, so we went from this large criteria, and we went slowly and slowly. We made it more specific until the end we have only got one particular species that can fit in. Remember, a species are able to breed with each other, and the offspring should be fertile. Okay. There are, when it comes to the kingdoms, right, I have put the 5 kingdom, but I know lots of you have also done the 6 kingdoms, right? There's a lot of discrepancy about, all right, the different kingdoms, and most of it comes here when we look at the bacteria kingdom, right? Quite a while back, as I said, before the 1970s, all bacteria were clumped together in a group. And what has happened is, as the technology has improved, so they are able to see that there are differences, that actually they need to split into the 2 different kingdoms. So when we come to the bacteria, we actually can split into archaebacteria and eubacteria, old and the new. But let's just have a look. I love this picture because when you think of kingdoms, you think of palaces and kings and queens, and that's why I chose this one. Other than here, the Monera, as I said, the bacteria, we can split those into the archaea and the eubacteria, or the bacteria. Then we're going to have the protista kingdom, then the plants, then the animals and the fungi. Right? So these ones will remain the same. It's this one that sometimes some people follow the 5 and some people follow the 6. That's leading more towards the 6 now, because they're saying with new advancements there is a definite difference. Okay, all right, what I've done here, remember what I said to you is that you need to put each of the kingdom has got a specific box. So when we look at it, what do we look at? We take an organism, we say, look at its structure. Does it have a cell wall? Does it not have a cell wall? Does it have a nucleus? Doesn't it have a nucleus? How does it move? How does it reproduce? All of those things. And if we look at the criteria, what we can do is, where there's similarities, we can put them together, and when there is vast differences, they obviously belong in another kingdom. When we look at bacteria, there's simple criteria. They're unicellular, only one cell. All right? Only one cell. And you will see over here, they do not have a nuclear membrane. Right? They have got these chromosomes that are not membrane bound. Okay? You will also see they're mostly heterotrophic. Bacteria do tend to need, all right, to live on dead organic matter. They can be decomposers or saprophores, all right, but they very seldom are autotrophic. They cannot make their own, all right, food. These ones over here would fall into the bacteria, the eubacteria. The archaebacteria they are ones that are very, very difficult to study. They are like the bear grylls, all right, of bacteria. You are going to find them in the most extreme environments. You're going to find them where it's exceptionally hot, or on the other hand, exceptionally cold, or exceptionally salty, or totally alkaline. So they seem to, the older ones seem to live in the more extremes, when the earth, all right, was a bit more hostile and not as it is today. So there we've got it. We look at those, that's what bacteria does, and that's why we put it into a kingdom by itself. All right, and there I just showed you single cell. That's what happens when you just stain it, okay, so that you are able to see the bacteria. Okay, the next one, I think some people always, scientists will moan at me. I call this a bit of the junk kingdom. Not that it's full of junk, it just seems that the organisms in here don't seem to fit into the other, all right, the other kingdoms. Because here you have almost two separate groups. You have an organism that is somewhat animal-like, and you have another set of organisms which is somewhat plant-like. But because they don't have the criteria for being an animal, they're not in that kingdom, and these ones do not have the criteria for being a plant, so they're not in that kingdom. So you will find, for example, if I look here again, they're going to be, all right, in the protista kingdom, but the eukaryote domain. In other words, their cells, all right, are going to have a nucleus, all right, a membrane-bound nucleus. You will notice here, they can be very small, or they can be big. They can make their own food, or they're reliant on others, or they're even parasitic, okay? So if you have a look at the pictures, again, I want to show you, all right? When we look at this is kelp, it's seaweed. You think to yourself, okay, it could be a plant because it has, all right, it's green, it's got chlorophyll, all plants of that, but it doesn't have root stems or leaves, okay? So because it doesn't have those criteria, it doesn't fit into the plant kingdom. So we have a look over here. This is a protozoa. This is like the in that we find in mosquitoes. This can be the malaria-causing ones. These little things can move around, all right? So even though you're unicellular and nice and small, they move. So what kingdom do you think you want to try and push them into the animal kingdom, but they don't have the characteristics. They're not multicellular, they're reliant on water, etc. This is a fun one. All right, I know it looks gross, but you always choose the most interesting picture. This is a slime mold. Believe it or not, it looks like something did throw up. Yes, all right, I think that's why people don't touch it, but it's what part of the group slime mold. Notice, doesn't have any green, doesn't photosynthesize, so it's heterotrophic. These are interesting little things over here. They are little algae called diatoms, all right, and their cell membrane has a layer of silica that helps in the building industry. Okay.
Yeah, can we take a break?
I think we take a break again.
Okay, let's take a break, guys. This time, sit right in your seats. Do not move because we will be back after this very short break. Welcome back, Mindsetters. Wow, what an awesome show it has been so far. And someone said that the grade 10s are tired because they wrote a life science practical. Well, I'm sure not all of you wrote it, and if you did, I'm sure it was fun, so it gave you that much more energy. And let me know how the practical went if you guys did write it. I'm very interested because life science practicals are always so much fun, as life science is always so much fun, guys. And also remember to ask questions. I think this is the last time that you can ask questions, so send through anything that you wish to send through, guys. I'm looking forward to hearing it. Over to you, Cheryl.
Okay, I'm just going to answer a question quickly. One of our mindsetters, Stephanie, asked the question that protistas are divided into three groups. Yes, they are. Remember, I was just looking at all the common characteristics. The three groups are our algae. We had the kelp and we had the diatoms. The protozoa, all right? Here was your protozoa and your slime molds, which is different now when we look at fungus to the bread molds, etc. So the three groups are going to be, here we go, our algae, my protozoa, and my slime molds. Okay, we're going to carry on with fungus, all right, the fungi of the party. All right, when we think of the fungus, again, we're going to start to look at certain elements that are going to be key to the plant kingdom. Those of you who have, I'm sure in your illustrious school career, have grown bread mold. Some of you, I think, do it unintentionally, the little science experiments in your fridge or in your lunchbox. All right, so we're going to actually look at it. There's a variety. Again, the groups, we're going to find molds, mushrooms, all right, and believe it or not, this is yeast. Okay, this is found in all your breads and your bakeries. So if we look at all these different things, once again, you will see that they can either be unicellular, which is going to be our yeasts, or multicellular. They all are eukaryotic, all right? What they have in common with plants is that they have a cell wall, all right? They have a cell wall. When we looked at our protista kingdom, we couldn't say cell wall because protozoa, all right, they move like they don't have a cell wall. So that wasn't one of the characteristics that we could use. Okay, here, the problem with fungi, the reason why they are not into the plant kingdom, they don't have the root stems and leaves. Bread mold, we do start to see that structure forming. They lack chlorophyll, all right? They lack chlorophyll, and because of that, they are heterotrophic. They are reliant on other organisms, all right, for their foods. So as you can see here, I've got the classic bread mold, all right? That's there, the fungus, the nicest fungus of it all. All right, mushrooms, for those of you who are mushroom lovers, okay, always makes a dish a lot more yummy. Okay, our yeasts, which are going to be in our breads and our alcohols. And I always love to put this one up because I think it's one of the funguses that is always misconceived. This is ringworm. Okay, it is not a worm. Ringworm is a fungus, right? Or the name is because it kind of looks like a worm. Okay, but it is not a worm. You do not have worms when you have ringworm. It's a fungus, so you just treat it with an antifungal. All right, so lots of these, all right, can also be quite harmful. You can get athlete's foot and those kind of things, all right, or thrush. Those are all fungal infections. As I said, they're not in the plant kingdom yet. And that leads us to the next one, which is plants. Now, the reason why I have put this diagram up is because in grade 11, you do look at plant biodiversity. So you actually take the plants and you look at the different, all right, the different classifications of them. Now we're going back, or again, if you noticed, in the plant kingdom, all right, we actually break that up into even smaller, all right, categories. You're going to learn about the moss, small, simple, all right, and it's what they call non-vascular plants. There's no xylem, there's no phloem, it's reliant on water for fertilization, all right, so it's lacking certain things. Then we find our plants that do have vascular tissue. So look here, we actually go up in the plants, we have a hierarchy as well. So I've got my simple moss, right? And after my simple moss, I have my more complex, what we call the fern, right? Doesn't produce seeds, produces spores. Plants usually produce seeds or spores as their means of reproduction. Okay, my fern, now if we have to up it a step, all right, so give it a few of those added extras, the next one is my gymnosperms, my pine cone bearing plants, right? Have a little bit of added extras, increasing complexity. And the highest order there is you're going to look at flowering plants, angiosperms, right? So within the, do you see within how in the kingdom, all right, look, when we did the human just now, I showed you, it went from those who have a backbone, those who, all right, the mammals, then what the mammals can do. So plants are exactly the same, right? Although they don't have as complex workings, all right, as animals do, they themselves also have a hierarchy where they're going to have simple, right, working their way up to the most complex. What do plants have? Sorry? Let me just go over here. I think it was at the next one. All right, no. Okay. All right, I'm going to go back again. Okay. Plants. Right, first of all, they have roots, stems, and leaves. They have chlorophyll. They have cell walls. What can they do? They can reproduce sexually by seeds or asexually by spores. Right, so that's why certain of the fungi and certain of the, what we call the algae, aren't going to fit into this category. Okay, right, so this leaves us with the last kingdom, and that's going to be our Animalia. All right, have a look. Heterotrophic, they are, plants are autotrophic. They are able to use the sunlight and convert it, all right, into energy. That's what the chlorophyll is for. We can't. We are multicellular. Animals do not have cell walls. All right, animal cells, remember at the beginning of the year, you did the difference between a plant cell and an animal cell. And one of the differences that you should have noted on is that all animal cells do not have a cell wall. They only have a cell membrane. And there's what I said to you. All right, this large, how do we first break it up? We break it up into invertebrates and vertebrates. That which has a backbone, that which doesn't. All right, now I put a few pictures again. All right, always nice to have visual. And here, the reason why I put this in over here, this is a sponge. All right, whenever I say sponge, I think all the kids start laughing because they think of SpongeBob SquarePants. All right, but it is like sort of like what he lives at the bottom of the ocean. But this is an animal, believe it or not. It's part of the animal kingdom. All right, it's part of Porifera. Right, it's a sponge, and if you look at it like that, I think most of you, right, would automatically think, okay, it looks like a plant, but it's not. Its characteristics, see, no chlorophyll, no roots, and no stems. And believe it or not, water flows through it, and it actually gobbles. It's what they call a filter feeder. Okay, I like this picture of the frogs. That's why I put it in. All right. So when we look at animals, have a look here. Look here. See, now all of a sudden we start to break it up. Remember what I said. Kingdom, large, all right, not a lot of specific characteristics. The phylum, there we go. What do we break it into? A backbone, all right? Yeah? Without a backbone, a backbone. Look here. Look what you can divide them into here. Arthropoda, insects, all right? Here we go, the crustaceans, all your crabs, all right, all your arachnida, those are like your spiders and that, right, because they don't fit into the insect mold where you're supposed to have 6 legs. So again, you have criteria for each of these. And if we go over here, as I said to you earlier, once again, what are you going to have? You are going to have these different, all right, each one has got a specific criteria. Lives in water, land on water, more terrestrial, can fly, not necessarily, all right, but it lays eggs, warm-blooded, and there we get our mammals with all the different criteria. Now, what's one thing that you are going to need to be able to use is a biological key or a dichotomous key. And that is quite simply you must use your eyes, all right? Because what it is, okay, I've used a very simple one here, because you guys will know exactly what these creatures are. But you can, just by looking, using your eyes, looking at the picture and following instructions, you can find out the name of an animal without even knowing what the cooking clue you are looking at. So if I look here I'm given, all right, 4 animals. Yes, I'm going to pretend I don't know what they are. All right? Never seen them before, but I'm just going to, let me go back here. All right, so here. What you always do is you take the organism and you've got a series of prompts. You always start with one, always. No matter which animal you go to, if you've got 20 different animals, you always start at step 1. And it always gives you 2 options. Okay, the first one, internal skeleton. Now, if I go here, I know it's a big animal. It's not going to have a shell, all right? So the bones are going to be inside. So I'm going to answer yes. When I answer yes, I move across. And it gives me an order. It says, okay, now go to 2. So now I go to number 2. All right? I'm given 2 criteria. One is going to fit, the other one isn't. Okay, I know it's a kangaroo, so I'm going to say, yes, a pouch is present. And I take my hand and I follow it across and I go, oh, it's a kangaroo. Right? So I stop once I'm given the name, all right, of that particular organism. Now I find, okay, so I put kangaroo underneath it. Now I go back up and I go to the next. And I say, okay, all right, let's take the next one. Okay, I know it's a cow, but we start off. Internal skeleton, no internal. Internal, go to number 2. Right, I go to number 2. Is there a pouch? No. So I go, oh, and look what it says. It is a cow. Right? And I keep on doing that for each of them. So you'll see here, it's a bee. I know it's a bee, as I'm trying to explain. So it's an insect, so it has no skeleton. So I say, okay, now all of a sudden I must go to number 3. I go to number 3. Does it have 6 legs or 8? Insects have 6. All right, it is a bee. I go to my last diagram. All right, we know it's a spider, but we start again at number 1. No internal skeleton. Okay, they must go to number 3. All right, and does not have 6 legs. It's a spider. So just by following, all I did was I looked at the picture and I looked at the characteristics, all right, and then I find, all right. So I think you'll probably get some difficult ones, all right. There's like big ones. All it is with prompts. And then you will be able, all right, if you follow this on the Facebook, I think they have it, and you'll be able to. I think that's all for today. Hey?
Yes, thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Cheryl, for such a great lesson. And thank you, Mindsetters. I know that life science is always such a breeze, and you guys enjoy it so much because it's actual real life. So great, great, great. And thank you for joining us today. It's been great, grade 10s. If you want to stay for grade 11s, of course you can. At Mindset, there's never a stop to learning. So please do. From us, bye-bye.